All right, let's talk Michigan Wolverines football. Got some great news for you Michigan fans. Coach Sherrone Moore had maybe one of the best days so far this offseason for this Wolverines program. He's had a really nice offseason overall. I think he's done a heck of a job, as good as he could have done, taking over Harbaugh. But I think we were all kind of waiting for his first kind of huge recruiting win kind of day where it goes out and makes a big name for himself in this Michigan program, and he was able to get it done. Let's go ahead and pull up these reports involving these latest commitments to the Maize and Blue. First up, again, all of these are courtesy of Hayes Fawcett. Great follow on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. Highly recommend them. But here we go. The first one, breaking class of 2025 linebacker Chase Taylor has committed to Michigan. He tells me for at On Three Recruits, the 6'3", 220-pound linebacker from Stockbridge, Georgia, chose the Wolverines over USC and Georgia Tech. Taylor was quoted as saying, "God's plan, I'm home. Go blue." All right, next one again from the great Hayes Fawcett. Breaking four-star wide receiver Jacob Washington has committed to Michigan. He tells me for On Three Recruits, the 6'3", 190-pound wide receiver from New Orleans, Louisiana, chose the Wolverines over Missouri, Mississippi State, and Georgia Tech. And last but certainly not least, class of 2025 interior offensive lineman Caden Strayhorn has committed to Michigan. He tells me for at On Three Recruits. The 6'3", 298-pound interior offensive lineman from Novi, Michigan, chose the Wolverines over Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, and Miami. All right, this is obviously a coup for Sherrone Moore. The Michigan Wolverines getting not one, not two, but three quality recruits in a single short span. Great sign for Michigan going forward. Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. But first, Michigan fans in the comment section below, as we're working our way through this offseason, Sherrone Moore over a number of times has proven his worth, but there's been some downsides as well. He could have had maybe some better days in recruiting, maybe some better days through spring ball. Great Sherrone Moore's performance so far. Again, no real games have played yet, but still, we've seen a lot of activity. Great Coach Moore's performance based on your opinion. Do you love it? A plus? Do you think it could be better? Maybe a B minus, whatever it may be. Grade Coach Moore for us in the comment section below. But Miles, what are your thoughts on all this just really exciting recruiting developments here for Michigan?
Yeah, Nick, I think this is fantastic for the Wolverines because you look at these guys. First of all, this is a multitude of recruits that you get in all different positions. And I think it helps fill out this recruiting class very nicely so far. They only had one other offensive lineman, so this brings it up to two. They didn't have any linebackers, so that brings that up to one as well. And as far as receivers, they only had one other receiver. So not loading up too much into any category in particular. I really like it when you spread guys out and get, a good mix of recruits coming in. Then I think the important part here is what head coach Sherrone Moore is able to do in these other states. You look at Chase Taylor, a guy from Georgia, able to pull a guy out of Georgia, get him over to Michigan. You're the national champs. You should be able to do that. You should be able to get the best recruits in the country to come to your school. You show, as head coach Sherrone Moore did, he can do that. You go over Caden Strayhorn, a guy, once again, originally is from Michigan, but transfers down to IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida. This is a guy, national program. Everyone knows IMG Academy. A lot of eyeballs on every kid at that school. Are you able to get a hometown guy and reel him in, bring him back home to Michigan? Can you keep your good talent in state? Yes, he can. Sherrone Moore did that as well. And then finally, another guy in Jacob Washington, a guy from Louisiana, another big-time state in the SEC. Can Big Ten go down and dominate SEC territory? Head coach Sherrone Moore, once again, shows he's capable of doing that as well. So I think not once, not twice, but three times in a row in a very short period of time, head coach Sherrone Moore is showing his recruiting dominance in a multitude of different ways. He's keeping the in-state talent that everybody found about, and he's getting two guys out of heavy SEC territory. I think he's making a huge statement here for Michigan recruiting. If I was the rest of college football world, I would be quite nervous because I think you maybe got off, weren't on edge, weren't really on your game as much. You thought Jim Harbaugh left. Michigan is probably going to take a major step back. But if you see how Coach Sherrone Moore has been recruiting, and we did numerous stories this offseason about the elite level recruiters head coach Sherrone Moore brought into this program, that's something that he really focused on. There's about 2 or 3 stories we did about top end recruiters he brought into the program. You're seeing the fruits of that bounty right now, and I think Michigan is in for a big year in 2025.
It's one of those things when you talk about head coaches and recruiting, we just kind of assume that the head coach is just like a super salesman. But you brought up something that I think is so critically important. It is the quality of the staff that Sherrone Moore brought in and delegated, right? Because when you're the head coach, you're not calling every recruit every single day. You're not going on all these trips, right? You just don't have the time. So how do you get a bunch of recruits from a bunch of different positions all over the country, right? We see some programs are able to, get one position group really well. They're great at recruiting offensive linemen, or they really dominate, East Georgia, like a specific region of something like that, just because they've got one or two good recruiters or their head coaches from that area, and they just have an advantage there. But what's so rare and what's such a good sign for Michigan is that Sherrone Moore has the ability to hire and then delegate and allocate resources like a true manager, like a true leader, right? Because you look at Sherrone Moore here, he's the head man. He's going to figure out, going to his assistants, hey, you got to spend time here, you got to spend time there, you got to talk to that recruit this much, then you got to go over here to talk to that recruit. You stop talking to that guy, I want you to talk to him, right? That's a big part of Sherrone Moore's job. That to me was a huge question mark as he moves to the head coach role. Can he handle being a delegator? Can he handle being basically the CEO of Michigan football? And these reports answer that question with absolute authority. You're darn right he can. And I think this is such a, like you said, got to make the rest of the competition, the Big Ten, nervous, because I think everyone saw Harbaugh leave and they say, okay, Moore, great offensive mind, but it's going to take him some time to learn the ropes of being a head coach, because you got to do all that managerial stuff. You got to do all the CEO kind of stuff. It's going to take a little time for him to learn. Well, guess what? It's what, June 24th? Took him a couple months and he's got it down pretty darn good, right? That's a great sign for Michigan going forward. Because if you have the ability to do that, which Sherrone Moore has just proven, then you can just continue to build recruiting classes and transfer classes on each other, right? Because that skill, that talent to be a manager and a leader in this kind of environment, that's something that you don't lose. That's just kind of an innate skill that you can develop over time. And Sherrone Moore has that talent. He developed it under Harbaugh, and we're seeing the fruits of that labor come through now. And this is a great sign for Michigan, obviously for the 2025 class, but even in the out years as well.